If there is one thing that we mere mortals have learned in the last year of the financial catastrophe in the United States, it's that it's good to be Goldman Sachs. George W. Bush's Treasury Secretary was Hank Paulson, former CEO of Goldman Sachs. Under Paulson, when Wall Street started exploding, it was decided that two of Goldman's biggest competitors, Lehman Brothers and Bear Stearns, would be allowed to fail. Meanwhile, AIG would be rescued, which was happy news for Goldman Sachs since AIG owed Goldman a ton of money. When the Troubled Assets Relief Program, the TARP program, was established, former Goldman CEO and Treasury Secretary Hank Paulson tapped another Goldman employee to be in charge of it. When President Obama replaced Mr. Paulson at Treasury with Tim Geithner, Mr. Geithner promptly chose a chief of staff who had been a lobbyist for Goldman Sachs. In March, President Obama picked another Goldman veteran to head up the very important Commodity Futures Trading Commission. Meanwhile, it only took Goldman itself a year to turn its $70 billion in taxpayer generosity from last year into a $3 billion quarterly profit right now. And its bonus pool for its executives has never looked fatter. The cherry on top is news today that the Securities and Exchange Commission, the supposed top cop on Wall Street, who missed everything from the subprime mortgage scam to Bernie Madoff, has just named a new chief operating officer of its enforcement division, a new top cop to keep Wall Street in line. His name is Adam Storch. He's 29, and he comes from Goldman Sachs. Surprised? Joining us now, the man once known as the real sheriff of Wall Street, former governor of New York, Eliot Spitzer. Governor, thanks for coming in tonight.
Pleasure to be here. 29, I'm feeling very old right now.
I'm feeling old right now. Am I making too much of Goldman's influence in Washington? Is this
No, you are not. This is a real problem. It is a problem not just because it is Goldman vis-a-vis Citibank or Morgan Stanley or any of the other investment banks. It's because Wall Street controls the Treasury Department. If you look at the Geithner logs, if you look who does he speak to, who does he listen to, it is exclusively the voice of Wall Street. Now, Goldman thinks it's preeminent. They're not as smart as they think they are. They make money because they dominate that street through a lot of different mechanisms, some of which they should not be proud of. But the problem is Tim Geithner doesn't call the Consumer Federation of America with the same frequency that he calls Goldman Sachs. Goldman has the ear of everybody. Their money has bought access. You know, the joke running around the street was that Goldman was going to do an LBO for the Treasury Department. They said, we're in the same department. We print money, they print money. We can come together, save everybody will come out ahead. This is a real problem. Aside
from the Consumer Federation of America, who are the other stakeholders who Treasury should be listening to as much as they're listening to Goldman?
Other enforcement agencies. I can tell you that the Treasury Department does not speak. Given that the SEC, the OCC, the OTS, the FDIC, all of them failed, how many times has the Treasury Department called the state attorneys general? Now, I'm biased. That's where I was. I thought we made some good cases. Did they ever pick up the phone and say, what do you think? Has Geithner ever reached out to that universe of people and say, what are we missing? What is going on in the street? Have they spoken to those who represent workers to say, how do we create jobs? Small businesses, small business owners. We went through an era where we went through the financialization of our economy. All we did was the razzle-dazzle of Wall Street, and it killed us. We didn't make things. We didn't invest in the intellectual capital that we needed. I would rather he talk to Silicon Valley than Wall Street. Silicon Valley is creative, intellectual genesis where they create the next generation of companies. Wall Street, they move money back and forth. They bid things up akin to the tulip bulbs back in Holland in 1600, and they think they're creating value. It's fictitious. What we need is people who create value. That's not Wall Street.
When we look at not only re-regulating Wall Street, but when we look at recreating our economy in a way that this doesn't just keep happening, are we building smart enough, tough enough, empowered enough cops?
No.
The enforcement system isn't good enough.
Rachel, I may be dead wrong about this, but I think that we've been rearranging the decks on the Titanic. Everybody knows the Peter Principle. You get promoted to the point of your incompetence. I think Washington, we'd have the Peter Principle on steroids. The people who were at the top of the regulatory agencies who completely failed, created the crisis, are now using this very same crisis they created to argue for more power for themselves. It is the Peter Principle on steroids. The people who were in charge of these groups and agencies are still there. I hate to say it, they are the very ones, and I don't mean to pick on Tim Geithner. Decent guy. I think he's dead wrong about most of what he's doing. But Tim Geithner was in charge of the New York Fed during the entire period that this bubble was created. He testified that he had never been a regulator, a more aberrant statement that's hard to imagine, yet he is not. So I think we are not yet solving the problem. We have enough power if people have the will to use it. And the fact that when you see these laws being winnowed down, when you see agencies still not asking the hard questions, too big to fail is still there. Too big to fail has not been confronted. The banks are not lending. We have socialized risk, privatized gain. None of that has changed. The banks are still using all the taxpayer money to create proprietary trading funds. No wonder Goldman makes $3 billion. You give them money for free. They go in to use all that liquidity to pump up an equities market so they get a return on the free money. Of course they do well. Anybody could do well in that context. We have not said to them, do something that helps the economy. The one person down there on a regulatory side who isn't unfortunately where he should be, who gets it, is Paul Volcker. Paul Volcker, who testified a couple weeks ago saying the banks should not be doing the sorts of things they're doing with guaranteed deposits, with federal assistance. They want proprietary trading. They want hedge funds. Let them go off and do that on their own. But if we give them the money, make sure they use it for reasons that will really boost our economy. It's not happening.
Still got a fox in the henhouse problem. And not only do we need to get the foxes out of there, we need to come up with a plan to defend the henhouse, which we have not yet done. Governor Spitzer, thank you for coming in.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Pleasure being here.